जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुना तीरावनचारी। यमुना तीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा। कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा। जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम। कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम। जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय। गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजगतिरेष्ठोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजगतिरेष्ठोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्भागवतम की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण रुक्मिणी सत्यभामा की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, entitled The Glories of Devotional Service. Text number 13. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Yoga Adhyatmikaha Pumsam Yoga Adhyatmikaha Pumsam Yoga Adhyatmikaha Pumsam Mataha Nishreyasaya Me Mato Nishreyasaya Me Mato Nishreyasaya Me Atyanta Uparatir Atyanto Paratir Atyanto Paratir Yatra Atyanto Paratir Yatra Atyanto paratiryatra dukkhasya cha sukhasya cha dukkhasya cha sukhasya cha dukkhasya cha sukhasya cha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yoga Adhyatmikaha Pumsa Mato Nishreyasaya Me Atyanto Paratiryatra Dukkhasya cha sukhasya cha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yoga Adhyatmikaha Pumsa Mato Nishreyasaya Me Atyanto Paratiryatra Dukkhasya cha sukhasya cha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha The personality of Godhead said, Yoga, the yoga system, Adhyatmikaha, relating to the soul, Pumsa, of living entities, Mataha, is approved, Nishreyasaya, for the ultimate benefit, May, by me, Atyanta, complete, Uparatihi, detachment, Yatra, where, Dukkhasya, from distress, Cha, and Sukhasya, from happiness, Cha, and. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. Kindly repeat. The personality of Godhead answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the material world, everyone is trying to get some material happiness, but as soon as we get some material happiness, there is also material distress. In the material world, one cannot have unadulterated happiness. Any kind of happiness one has is contaminated by distress also. For example, if we want to drink milk, then we have to bother to maintain a cow and keep her fit to supply milk. Drinking milk is very nice. It is also pleasure. but for the sake of drinking milk, one has to accept so much trouble. The yoga system, as here stated by the Lord, is meant to end all material happiness and material distress. The best yoga, as taught in Bhagavad-gita by Krishna, is Bhakti Yoga. It is also mentioned in the Gita that one should try to be tolerant and not be disturbed by material happiness or distress. Of course, one may say that he is not disturbed by material happiness, but he does not know that just after one enjoys so-called material happiness, material distress will follow. This is the law of the material world. Lord Kapila states that the yoga system is the science of the spirit. One practices yoga in order to attain perfection on the spiritual platform. There is no question of material happiness or distress. It is transcendental. Lord Kapila will eventually explain how it is transcendental, but the preliminary introduction is given here. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. There is an interesting story of how the automobiles, cars, became the most common form of transport. In the 19th century, 1800s, the most common form of transport was horse-drawn carriages. For transporting luggage, there used to be bullock carts or oxen-driven carts. For human beings to travel, horse-drawn carts were the most common thing. You can imagine all the streets full of horse-drawn carts. Actually, in India, even in the 1980s also, tangas, horse-drawn carts used to be very common. I remember when I was a small child, I grew up in Bangalore. We would be staying in Yeshwanthpur, and if we had to go anywhere, Majestic or Malleshwaram or something, buses used to be there, but very infrequent, and we wouldn't have the kind of number of buses that we have today. Once in 1 hour, one bus will come. And auto rickshaws also were there, but they were again, very few and expensive. We would go to the Yeshwanthpur, where currently one big flyover is there, and that big bus stand is there. We would go there, and that one corner is there. All horse tangas would be standing. We would go there, board one, and tell Malleshwaram, he would go and drop us. Of course, India was like that. But in the West, in the 1800s, it used to be only horse-drawn carts all over the world. And what happened was, in 1894, there came to be what is known as the big horse manure crisis. What had happened was, because everywhere these horse-drawn carts had become the most common form of transport, especially in cities, there used to be a big concentration of these horse-drawn carts. For example, in London, there were about 50,000 horses drawing all kinds of carts. You can imagine, everywhere you see, you'll be seeing only horses. Like today, if you go, you'll be seeing only cars and two-wheelers. Those days, it used to be only horses. New York had 100,000 horses drawing all kinds of cards. Now, while people were using all these horses to draw all the cards, the horses, wherever they would go, they would keep passing dung. The streets of London would get filled up with horse dung. And every day, evening, it would be a big industry, taking out all the horse dung, cleaning all the roads, and taking it to a centralized place, dumping it there, and then they have to figure out how to dispose of it. Every day in London by 1894, about 600 tons of horse dung would have to be disposed of. In New York, it will be 1,200 tons every day of horse dung. People were going mad. What to do with all this horse dung? And I think it was the New York Times or something which reported, if we continue at this current rate, in the next 50 years, London will be covered, the streets of all London will be covered in 6 feet of horse dung. Big environmental crisis. Now what to do? So in 1898, they formed an international urban planning meet where all the biggest brains of urban planning, architecture. You know, in architecture, we have different kinds of divisions. You can design houses, you can design big flats, you can design buildings like hospitals. These are all part of architecture. And you can also design what is known as urban planning. In architecture, urban planning means if you have to form a new city, how to plan out the layout of the city. And if it is an old city, how to manage the waste disposal system, how the garbage has to be handled. These are all part of urban planning. How the traffic will flow. So all these kind of things constitute urban planning. Now in 1898, they formed an international urban planning meet. All the big urban planning experts from the world over came and had a meeting. The burning question which they were all discussing, how to address this environmental problem of this horse manure. This was the big question. They discussed and discussed and discussed. They could not find any solution. So the world over, people were thinking in the big cities, what to do? We have only the horse-drawn cart for transport, and if we continue in this way, it will destroy the environment and all the cities will become unsustainable. What to do? Then, in the 1900s, in the beginning of the 1900s, Henry Ford came out with a system of mass production of cars. So Henry Ford, he started producing cars, but there were no sales, no customer, nobody was buying. What to do now? The answer is marketing. How to market? What is the marketing strategy? He came up with a brilliant plan. Let us do a marketing strategy where we position these motor cars as the environmentally clean solution. All the environmental disaster we are heading towards with these horse-drawn cars can be removed if we have motor cars. Neat solution. No more horse dung. All the streets will be permanently clean. Started a campaign. And that caught on people's imagination. Very quickly, by 1918, by 1920, what happened? All the horse-drawn cars disappeared from the major cities. They were all replaced by motor cars. People were all happy. Over. The environmental crisis is over. What an environmentally clean solution we have got. Motor cars. And we all know after a few generations what is happening. Now we are battling with another problem. The environmental crisis has become even more because of these automobiles. So these motor cars, which came as an environmentally clean solution, today are the most environmentally polluting solution. And so what we are thinking now, let us go with electric vehicles. They are environmentally clean. Now what kind of environmental pollution this will bring up, only the future generations will tell. This is the nature of this material world. Anyway, on another note, many years back in Bangalore, It so happened that in the temple hall, I was speaking to one person. Somebody, some newcomer, he had come to the temple and happened to meet him and speak to him, and I was trying to explain to him to chant Hare Krishna and read one book of Prabhupada and all that. Then he asked me one interesting question. He asked me, so when we attain mukti, we'll go to the spiritual world. I said, yes, Vaikuntha is there. We go back to Godhead, and we all have our individualities there. We are all persons there. So then he questioned, if all the people there in the spiritual world, they are all there, and God is there, and all the living entities are also persons there, what are their bodies made of? Do they also have heart, lungs, liver, etc.? Do they also have heart, lungs, kidney, liver, and all these things like we do? So for a moment I was taken aback. Totally unexpected question. Then I explained to him, you see, suppose in this world we have humanoids. You all know what is humanoids, right? Humanoids are robots which are given the appearance to look exactly like human beings. Sometimes we come across some videos how in China and Japan they have made humanoids which exactly look like human beings. I don't know how far it's true. But eventually in future they may be able to make such humanoids which look and act, walk, speak, everything exactly like human beings. I said, suppose we take a humanoid and looks externally exactly like a human being. And you open up that humanoid, what will you find inside? You will find wires, you will find steel, there will be a steel frame, there will be so many wires, there will be batteries, there will be electronic circuits, there will be a CPU, a central processing unit, there will be cameras, there will be sensors, there will be mics. These are all what you will find. Now because a humanoid looks like a human being, and when you open up the humanoid, there are all these things. If you ask me the question, so if we open up a human body also, will we find wires and electronic circuits and sensors and camera and all that? No, the human body is made of completely different items. You will not find wires and steel and all that inside that. There you will find bones, you will find flesh, you will find blood and all these kind of things. There is a big difference. Externally it might look like the same because it is an imitation. But between the imitation and the original, you cannot expect that internally it will be the same. Similarly, this human body that we have here is an imitation of the spiritual body. And the spiritual body, unlike the material bodies, imitation material bodies that we have here, are not made up of matter like our bodies here. It's not filled with heart and blood and lungs and all this kind of stuff. There the bodies are made of completely different item, which is called spirit. There the bodies are completely spiritual. Therefore you will not find all these things there. Like this I explained to him, and that man seems to be convinced. Now, the connection between horse dung to the spiritual bodies. In the Vishnu Purana, it is stated that Hladini Sandhini Samvit Tvai Eka Sarva Samshraya Hladhatapakari Mishra Tvaino Gunavarjite. The Vishnu Purana is explaining what constitutes the spiritual body. Krishna's spiritual body actually, like our body, is consisting of earth, water, fire, air and space. Mind, intelligence and false ego. These are the 8 elements, gross and subtle elements, which comprise this human body. Now a spiritual body, when we say in the spiritual world, everybody has a spiritual body. What does it mean? The spiritual body of Krishna comprises of 3 elements. Like our body comprises 8 elements when it is made up of matter. Krishna's spiritual body comprises 3 elements. What are these 3 elements? Sat, Chit and Ananda. Eternity, bliss and knowledge. These 3 things are what make up the constitution of Krishna's spiritual body. Now, because Krishna's body is comprising of these three elements, Sat, Chit and Ananda, eternity, bliss and knowledge, Satchidananda Vigraha, his form constitutes these three things. Therefore, Krishna's internal energy has three primary divisions, broadly speaking. What are those? They are Hladini, Sandhini and Samvit. The Hladini is the pleasure potency of Krishna, the pleasure energy, the energy of Krishna which gives him pleasure. Sandhini, the energy of Krishna which sustains everything within the spiritual world. That is what gives Krishna a sense of identity. I am Krishna, I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An imitation of that in this material world is the false ego. We have a sense of identity. I am a man, I am a woman, I am an Indian, I am an American, I am Hindu, I am a Muslim. All these kind of identities that we undertake, that we assume that yes, I am this. Krishna also has a sense of identity. I am Krishna, I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I am the Purusha. That sense of identity is sustained by Krishna's energy, which is known as Sandhini. And then the third energy of Krishna is the Samvit energy, the energy of Krishna which provides him with all knowledge. Because Krishna's body, spiritual body, comprises these three elements, Sat, Chit and Ananda, therefore Krishna has three energies. Krishna's internal energy has three divisions, Hladini, Sandhini and Samvit. So, when we say that in the spiritual world everybody has a spiritual body, then what comprises that spiritual body? It is Sat, Chit and Ananda. Like in this material world, material body means 8 elements. Similarly, spiritual world, spiritual body means 3 elements, Sat, Chit and Ananda. So, now in the case of Krishna's body, because Krishna has got these 3 energies, these energies of Krishna are constantly supplying him with knowledge and pleasure. And that is why the Vedanta Sutra state, Anandamayo Abhyasat. That Krishna is constantly enjoying happiness. Now, because Krishna has that propensity to enjoy constantly, we, being his part and parcel, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, Mamaivamcho Jivaloke Jivabhuta Sanatanaha. Eternally, we are part and parcel of Krishna. We are amshas of Krishna. And because we are part and parcel, minute parts and parcels of Krishna, we also have the same quality that we want to enjoy. And therefore, in this material world, everybody at every second is seeking happiness. We are trying in various ways how we can enhance our experience of happiness in this material world. But then, what happens is in this material world, Hlada Tapakari Mishra. Hlada, whatever happiness we experience in the material world, is Tapakari Mishra. Is Mishra, it is mixed with Tapa. Tapa means distress. We say Tapatraya. There are fundamentally three kinds of distress. Adhyatmika klesha, Adhibhautika klesha, Adhidaivika klesha. Distresses which we have to experience on account of our own body and mind. That is called Adhyatmika klesha. I fall sick, or my mood is not okay, I feel depressed. My own body and mind gives me trouble. Adhibhautika klesha. Okay, my body may be fine, my mind is in a very good mood, I'm very jolly, I'm very happy today, and I'm going for a walk in the street. One dog will come and bite me. What did I do to the dog? Nothing. The dog came and bit me. Or I'm very happy today. Day went very well. I go down and lie down in the room. Such a good day I had. Now I'm going to sleep very peacefully. And you close your eyes. What will happen? Near the ear, one helicopter will come. It will start buzzing. Mosquito. It will not allow you to sleep. What did I do to the mosquito? Will not allow you to sleep. And whole night you will be turning this way, that way. Abba, what is this? Adhibhautika klesha. Other living entities give us trouble. Okay, Adhyatmika, there is no klesha. I am very happy. Mind is very good. Body is very healthy. And there are no other living entities also giving me trouble. what will happen? Suddenly, there will be one COVID pandemic, or there will be one tsunami. I'm having a nice walk on the beach. Suddenly, there is a tsunami. So these things we have no control over. The distresses, the calamities, the catastrophes that are imposed upon us by material nature, which is called adibhautika klesha. At every point in our life, at every second, some klesha or the other out of these three is affecting us. This is called tapatraya. In this material world, everyone wants happiness. Nobody is working hard. Let me become sad. Let me become distressed. Nobody is working hard. Nobody is working hard. Let me create a pandemic and then let us all of us suffer the pandemic. Nobody thinks like that. But pandemics happen, tsunamis happen, earthquakes happen, diseases come, our own mind becomes depressed. Nobody wants to be depressed, but we become depressed, and then we have to go to some psychiatrist, take some medicine. So constantly, what are we doing? We are trying to increase our happiness, but constantly distresses are coming in our life. Nobody wants distress, but distresses keep coming in our life, uninvited. They are like atitis. Atiti means uninvited guest. Distresses are uninvited guests in our lives. We never invite any distress, but distress comes of its own accord. This is the nature of the material world. Every happiness that we have in this material world, hlada, tapakari mishra, it will always be with distress. You can never experience uncontaminated happiness in this material world. Just like whether it is at the individual level, at the level of the community, at the level of the nation, at the level of the globe, at every level, no matter whether individually or in a concerted way, together with all other human beings who put efforts, you cannot enjoy happiness which is uncontaminated. Just like the whole world came together and they were discussing what is the solution of this environmental crisis of this horse manure. Oh, we have found a great solution, the motor car. But what happened? That motor car gave happiness, freedom from the calamity, from the economic, from the environmental problem, from the environmental crisis of horse manure. We got freedom, so everybody was happy. But then it got mixed with another kind of environmental pollution problem. You see, at the global level, everybody is, all the nations, all the different cities, New York, London, all the big cities, all the urban planners are coming together in a concerted way, united way. They are all working how to solve this environmental crisis, and they found a solution, the motor car. But that motor car brought its own problem. This is called hlada tapakari mishra. In this material world, if at the global level, all big people come together and all the big nations come together and they are not able to find a solution which is free from any distress, then at the individual level, we are all minuscule individuals. We don't have so much power as all the nations of the world coming together, all the brilliant urban planners coming together. They couldn't find a solution which is free from any distress. Then how at the individual level, we are such small individuals, so powerless individuals, we have very limited intelligence and capability and access to resources. Where will we find solution to our problems which is completely free from all distress? Whatever solution you find, whether at the individual, community, national, global level, every solution, every effort you make to enjoy, to increase your happiness, it will be mixed with distress. Hlada tapakari mishra. But then the Vishnu Purana states, Tvayino gunavarjite. But in you, Krishna, this hlada, your hladini shakti, is not mixed with tapakari mishra. It is not mixed with tapa. There is no distress mixed with Krishna's pleasure. Why? Because gunavarjite. Krishna is completely free from the influence of the three modes of material nature. Sattva-guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna. The modes of passion, ignorance and goodness. Krishna is completely beyond all these, the influence of these three material modes of material nature. And therefore, Krishna's Hladini Shakti is completely unmixed with distress. Krishna is simply enjoying. There is no distress in the spiritual world. And therefore, Narada Muni states at the very beginning of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Narada Muni states, Tasyaiva hetoha prayateta kovido nalabhyate yad brahmatam uparyadaha tallabhyate dukkavad anyataha sukham kalena sarvatra gabira ramhasa. Narada Muni is stating in his instructions to Vyasadeva, Narada Muni said, Kalena sarvatra gabira ramhasa. By the great force, gabira ramhasa, with the unstoppable force of kala, of time, what happens is, tallabhyate dukkavad anyataha sukham. Every person undergoes distress without striving for it. Nobody strives for distress. Everybody is trying for happiness. But then, kalena sarvatra gabira ramhasa, because of the inexorable force of kala, of time, everybody is undergoing distress. And therefore, Narada Muni says, Tasyaiva hetoha prayateta kovidaha. Kovida, an intelligent person, a really intelligent person, what does he do? Tasyaiva hetoha prayateta. He should endeavor not simply to make some adjustment in the material world by which I can become happy. Because every happiness in this material world is mixed with distress. So there is no point trying to attain happiness within this material world. Therefore, an intelligent person, tasyaiva hetoha prayateta, he should endeavor for that which is not obtainable, upari adaha, from Brahmaloka down to Patala Loka, what is not available in this material world, an intelligent person should strive to get that. What is it that is not available from Brahmaloka down to Patala Loka? That is, hlada tapakari mishra, tvaino gunavarjite. Happiness which is unmixed with distress is not obtainable anywhere in this universe. Right from Brahmaloka and Svargaloka down to Patala Loka. Everywhere happiness is mixed with distress. This is the feature of this material world. You cannot separate this feature out of this material manifestation. Therefore, Narada Muni says, but there is the spiritual world, Tvaino Gunavarjite. Krishna in the spiritual world, he is enjoying happiness which is unmixed with distress. Therefore, an intelligent person should understand, in this material world, there is no happiness unmixed with distress. All happiness is mixed with distress. Like Prabhupada is giving the example in today's purport. Milk is very nice. To drink milk is very pleasurable. But to get that milk, you have to maintain a cow. And you have to feed her, you have to take good care of her, you have to ensure that she is happy, you have to serve her nicely, only then you will get the milk. So every happiness in this material world is mixed with distress. And therefore an intelligent person strives, let me attain the spiritual world where there is no distress. This is real intelligence. And therefore the Vedic scriptures state, as it is stated in today's verse, Atyantoparatir yatra dukhasya cha sukhasya cha. So Srila Prabhupada says, the Vedic scriptures, they state, Atyantika dukkha nivritti. Human being means he should strive for Atyantika dukkha nivritti. Similar to what is stated here. Atyantoparatir yatra dukhasya cha sukhasya cha. So what does this mean? Atyantika dukkha nivritti. Atyantika means ultimate. Dukkha nivritti means, dukkha means distress, nivritti means freedom from. So Atyantika dukkha nivritti means ultimate freedom from all kinds of distress. This is what a human being should be striving for, he should be endeavoring for. This is the real goal of the human form of life. Otherwise, whatever solutions you find in this material world, they will always be mixed with distress. And therefore, he is Kapila Deva. This is the first instruction he is giving to Devahuti. Because his mother Devahuti, her whole request to her son, Kapila Deva, who is the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what was she inquiring? She was saying, I have got fed up with this attempts to engage in sense gratification in this material world, to become happy in this material world. So please guide me how to become free from this permanent cycle of distress and happiness within this material world. That was her request. That was her questioning to Kapila Deva. So therefore, the first instruction that Kapila Deva is giving to his mother is That atyantoparatir yatra dukkhasya cha sukhasya cha. If you want to become completely free from the sukha dukkha, the mixture of sukha and dukkha, the mixture of happiness and distress within this material world, then yoga adhyatmika pumsam. You have to engage in that yoga system which relates to the Supreme Lord Krishna and the individual soul, Atma. And he says, Me nishreyasaya mataha. This is my opinion. So directly, the first instruction Kapila Deva is giving to his mother is, if you want to become free from the mixture of happiness and distress within this material world, then you have to engage in yoga adhyatmikaha. You have to engage in that yoga which will link you with the Supreme Soul, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. In other words, it is Bhakti Yoga. Because Bhakti Yoga is what establishes our connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we speak of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, these yoga processes will not establish a direct connection between us and the Supreme Lord Krishna. Between the Atma and Paramatma, no direct connection is established. There are only indirect connections. Whereas Bhakti Yoga constitutes, the first step in Bhakti Yoga is to understand Sambandha. What is my relationship with Krishna? And then, based on that Sambandha, we engage in Abhideya. Activities in that relationship between Krishna and us, which is all the different processes of devotional service, beginning with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnoho, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Mandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam. All these 9 forms of devotional service is what constitutes activities in our relationship with Krishna. What is our Sambandha? What is our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Our Sambandha is, I am eternally Dasa Dasanu Dasaha. I am a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is my eternal relationship with Krishna. I am eternally a servant of Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Master and I am eternally his servant. And then, so if we understand that I am a servant of Krishna, Krishna is my Supreme Lord and Master, then we have to act in that relationship, which is Abhideya, or the activities of Shravanam and Kirtanam, which is the activities of devotional service. And if we have established our Sambandha relationship with Krishna, and we are engaging in Abhideya, the activities in that relationship, there has to be some prayojana, there has to be some result that comes out of it. We don't engage in service to somebody else without any result, isn't it? Whenever we engage in some activity, always what do we think? First we think, what is the result I am going to get out of this? Then we engage in that activity. Nobody engages in activity mindlessly. You go and ask somebody is walking along the road. Why are you walking? Simply, I don't have any idea. Simply I am walking. Will anybody say that? No. Either the person will say, I have to go to so and so place, therefore I am walking. Or he will say, I want to improve my health, therefore I am walking. There will be some reason, isn't it? Nobody will be walking aimlessly without any reason. So we can see even the simplest activity like walking, we have to have some end result in mind. Without an end result in mind, we will not engage in any activity. So in the case of when we have established our Sambandha relationship with Krishna and we are engaging in devotional service, which is Abhideya, chanting and hearing and all those kind of things, there has to be some prayojana, some result. What is the result that we are aiming at in engaging in service to Krishna? That is Krishna Prema. To achieve love for Krishna, that is the goal of engaging in Abhideya or activities in one's established relationship, Sambandha of Krishna. So, therefore, Kapila Deva is advising his mother, Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam. We have to engage in devotional service, which is the ultimate yoga practice. And by so doing, he is saying Nishreyasaya, it will give the ultimate benefit, which is to develop love of Krishna. And that love of Krishna is characterized by atyantoparatir yatra dukhasya cha sukhasya cha, which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in this material world. This is the characteristic. Because Krishna also explains in the Bhagavad-gita, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha. Rasavarjam rasopyatra param drishtva nivartate. In this material world, what happens is when we undergo any yoga practice, whether it is karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga, any practice you take, Vishaya vinivartante, we have to control the Vishayas, we have to control our senses. Sense control, self-restraint is primary to any yoga practice. There is no yoga without controlling the senses. This is a fundamental aspect of all yoga, whether it is karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga, any yoga practice you take. Now Krishna is saying, niraharasya dehinaha. For an embodied person, if you don't give food, what will happen? Automatically my energy will reduce, my activities will reduce. I will become inactive, isn't it? Suppose for whole day you are fasting. What will happen? By the end of the day, you'll be like this. You'll be lying on the bed. Eyes will be turned upward. Mouth will be open. Hopefully somebody will come and put some food in the mouth. You'll be waiting. All energy is finished. Isn't it? Because without food, nirahara, without food you cannot have energy. And if you don't have energy in the body, how will you act? You cannot even get up out of bed. So Krishna is saying, niraharasya dehinaha. If you don't have food, what will happen? You will become inactive. Similarly, Vishaya vinivartante. If you do not provide sense gratification to the senses will automatically become weak. The senses will not have the energy to engage in sense gratification. This is what happens on the path of Karma Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga and Jnana Yoga. The processes of Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga entail voluntarily with personal effort, on the effort of our determination and willpower, we disengage the senses from the sense objects. We, on the strength of our intelligence and following the practices, rules and regulations of brahmacharya and all these aspects, we physically restrain, mechanically restrain the senses from contacting the sense objects. That is why when a person practices Jnana Yoga, the first thing is you have to take sannyas. Sannyas means completely you give up the material world. All connection with the material world you give up. And you sit down and your only activity is study the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutras. So this is forcefully you are restraining the senses from engaging with the material world. And in Ashtanga Yoga, you give up everything, go to the forest, and in the middle of the forest where nobody else is there, you practice the different asanas, pranayama, dharana, samadhi, etc. You cut off yourself completely from the material world. So this is how the different yoga systems work to forcibly prevent the senses from engaging with the sense objects. When you do that, what will happen? Automatically the senses will become weak. Their demand for sense gratification will diminish. But Krishna says, Rasa Varjam, although you have given up the activities of sense gratification, you have forcibly disconnected the senses from the sense objects. Rasa Varjam rasopyatra, that propensity to enjoy continues to remain within the heart. You give a slight opportunity for the senses to come and touch with the sense objects, immediately the sense gratification will explode. Just like you see the examples of Vishwamitra Muni. He was engaged in meditation. He was deep in samadhi, cut off completely from the outside material world, forcibly restraining his senses from engaging in the sense objects. Closed his eyes, deep in meditation, withdrawn all his senses. And what happens? One apsara walks by and the tinkling of her ankle bells falls on his ears. All his meditation, everything broken. He opens his eyes, over. All his dhyana, all his ashtanga yoga, everything he forgot. Why? Because rasavarjam rasopyatra. Although he has forcibly restrained the senses and the senses have become weak, the propensity to enjoy the senses is still there within the heart. Small opportunity, tinkling of the ankle bells, finished. Everything is lost in one moment. So therefore, Krishna says all these processes of Ashtanga Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, all these things, Vishaya Vinivartanta, you may be restraining the senses from sense gratification. But Rasavarjam Rasopyatra, that propensity to enjoy, that rasa, that taste for sense gratification has not gone away. Then what is the solution? Param Drishtva Nivartate. When you engage in devotional service to Krishna, beginning with Shravana and Kirtana, beginning with chanting Krishna's holy name and hearing his pastimes, hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam, hearing the Bhagavad-gita, what happens? Automatically, the taste itself to enjoy the senses goes away. Actually, we all, when we engage in devotional service to Krishna, when we take up chanting Hare Krishna mantra, this is experienced by all of us. None of us are big yogis. None of us are big jnanis. We are not sannyasis. We are not renunciants. We are none of these things. But what happens? We come in touch with some devotees. Some faith is there. The devotees tell us, why don't you start chanting Hare Krishna mantra? One mala you chant, just 10 minutes. And we also agree, okay, I'll also chant. We start chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. We chant every day 1 round, 10 rounds, 10 minutes approximately it will take. After a few months of chanting, automatically we feel, why not make it 1 more round? Make it 2 rounds. We start chanting 2 rounds. Slowly, after a few months, taste is developing slowly. Param Drishtva, we have started experiencing a higher taste, you see. What happens? Automatically in our heart, we feel, let me make it 4 rounds. Start chanting 4 rounds. What will happen? Automatically from your life, coffee and tea will go away. Nobody needs to tell you. Automatically you lose the taste. Many times it happens, you see, when we go out, as devotees, especially in North India, we used to go out and meet people. The moment we go to their house or office or something, they'll tell, some coffee, tea, what can I bring for you? So we tell, niyam hai, our rule is there, we don't take coffee or tea. Oh, really? You didn't take coffee or tea? Once in a while maybe. Okay, I understand your rule and regulation, but once in a while you can take, no. You may not have taken coffee for so many months. One day in my house you take. No. Rule, we don't take. Even once in a while you didn't take. Little you can take, maybe quarter glass, not full glass. No, Baba, we don't want at all. People are astonished. How can these people be away from coffee and tea? But we are not thinking like that, right? Nobody forced us. It's not that we are thinking what to do, coffee and tea I cannot drink. When we go in train or bus or we go in some aircraft or something, we see people sitting next to us drinking coffee and tea. When we look at, my mouth is watering, what to do? I cannot drink coffee or tea. Do we think? On the other hand, what happens? Coffee smell. What a bad smell. How these people are drinking that? You see, taste has gone away. How did this happen? Simply because of chanting Hare Krishna mantra. We are not some sannyasis, yogis and all that. Slowly, our taste for chanting will increase. We will come to 8 rounds. 8 rounds we come, what will happen? Automatically, coffee and tea will go out of the coffee and tea already gone. Onion and garlic will go out of our menu. People will all be looking at, kya hai, bina pyaz lasun? How can you live without onion and garlic? Food will be so bland. No taste at all. How will you eat food without onion? For us, the smell of onion itself is so nauseating. It's not that from birth we were like that. What happened? Param Drishtva, we have started experiencing a higher taste. Automatically, the taste for material sense gratification has gone out from our lives. So this is the nature of Krishna consciousness. When you engage in devotional service to Krishna, we are constantly experiencing spiritual pleasure, because of which the desire, the taste for sense gratification goes out of our lives. This is actually Atyantika Dukkha Nivritti. We are progressing on the path of becoming free from this material world where all happiness is mixed with distress. We are progressing towards a place where we will constantly experience happiness, no more distress. So this is what the prayojana, the ultimate benefit which is going to accrue to us by following the process of Shravana Kirtana, the process of devotional service, which is what Kapila Deva is also advising his mother, that yoga adhyatmikaha pumsam mato nishtayasaya me. The ultimate benefit, the ultimate perfection that we can achieve in the human form of life is to engage in devotional service to Krishna, by which atyantoparatir yatra dukkhasya cha sukhasya cha atyantika dukha nivritti. We can become completely free from hladataapakari mishra, the happiness which is mixed with distress. No more horse dung, no more environmental pollution. None of these things will bother us anymore once we go to the spiritual world. It's not that in the spiritual world there are no modes of transport. There also aeroplanes are there. There also vehicles are there for transport. All those things are there. But unlike this material world, there is no distress associated with that. There is no air pollution that happens, environmental pollution that happens in the spiritual world. So you see, Lada Tapakari Mishra, this is a characteristic of this material universe, but the spiritual universe is completely Tvaino Gunavarjite. It is completely free from the influence of any kind of distress. So who would not want to go to such a place? So that is what is being offered to us by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, we should seriously follow the path of Bhakti Yoga, understanding the prayojana, the ultimate benefit that is going to accrue to me, which is to go to the spiritual world where there is no more distress and there is only blissful experiences there. So I'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.